Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Instagram Live, and maybe you'll be watching later, talk on yoga and self-care. Welcome. I am Cyan Pascal. I am the founder of The Light Collective, and I am here today taking over Sisters by the Sea, which is a beautiful Instagram account that is really about supporting women to start taking care of themselves. And these guys, I straight away had an affinity to. Even though I'm in Melbourne, all of my family are in Ireland. They're all in the north of Ireland, and my dad was born in Belfast. So whenever I hear a Northern Irish accent, whenever somebody from that part of the world wants to connect with me, I'm sort of like, let's do this. So I'm really excited to be able to share some of my insights into femininity and self-care, and how you can start to bring these practices into your life, how you can let self-care begin to expand things for you rather than feeling contracted or guilty if you're not doing your self-care. I wanted to say welcome to everyone who has joined. Hey, Bruna, nice to see you on here. TLC, move over to Sisters by the Sea. I like it. Welcome to Martina, Jules, Lisa. Thank you for joining. I'm not sure how many will join live or how many might join later. So you might be watching this at some other time. I did want to start this talk by telling a very quick story. Hi, K-Tribe. Nice to see you. I was recently away and I was in a country town, and I love to op shop, so vintage shopping. And I was in a vintage shop, and there were a couple of, I shouldn't really say vintage shop because an op shop is really not as cool as a vintage shop. There's a lot of old musty clothes in there. There's a lot of old people who go there, and there's always some cute old woman behind the counter and, probably a cute old woman buying something. And this is what had happened. I was at the counter. I was going to buy something. I did really well. Had a really good vintage shop. I was listening to these two women talk, and one of them sort of said, and I was exhausted, and I hadn't eaten, and, it's just what we do as women. We take care of everyone else first, and we always forget about ourselves. And I just wanted to turn to her and shake her and just say, this is exactly what is wrong with so much in the world. We kind of say this stuff to ourselves and it becomes true. And really, when we are acting in this way, putting everybody first, not taking care of ourselves, not eating properly, not loving ourselves, then we're sitting for the most part in this idea of really victimhood. And women can stay victims. They can say, everybody else comes first in our household. I've got to clean everything before I take care of myself. I've got to feed everybody else before I get fed. And the issue with that is that it allows women to step out of the responsibility they have for themselves. It allows us to be victims of our own lives. There's always going to be work. There's always going to be friends, partners, family that will want to take precedence over your own self-love and self-care. But what I have seen in my work, in myself as well, is that when women start to prioritize self-love and self-care practices in their daily routines, then they start to empower themselves. So this is an act of deep empowerment, stepping into your own power. And so today I thought that we could discuss some of my routines. In fact, thinking about it just before, I realized I have had some kind of self-care routine since I was 16, which is pretty crazy. That's over 20 years of settling into taking care of myself. And when we can start to shed away at the idea, oh, hey, welcome, Casey. When we can shed the idea that self-care is selfishness, and when we can start to see that, as Maya Angelou said, we have two hands. And as we grow older, we realize one is for helping others and one is for helping ourselves. And to really start to feel into the importance of that balance. When we feed ourselves, we feed others, and self-care really becomes a reflection of every relationship that we have. Hey, welcome, everybody. That when we start to prioritize our own bodies, our own minds, it radiates to all of our relationships, because really, what is the one relationship you will have your entire life, no matter what? No matter what happens in your life, there will be one relationship that will never go away. And this is the relationship that you have with yourself. And this is the yogic journey, to constantly go inwards, to always be working on this relationship with the self. And when our relationship with ourself grows and blossoms, then we find the way people treat us is in direct correlation to the way we treat ourselves. I remember reading this a really long time ago in, what's it called? It's not Paul Coelho, it's The Four Agreements. He's another South American writer. And in one of the agreements, I can't remember which one it was, but I just remember it really standing out to me. How you treat yourself is the benchmark. So you can kind of think about it as you have a benchmark of how much kind of goodness you will take and how much shit you will take, for want of a better word, within yourself, how you talk to yourself, how you care for yourself. And that is exactly what you will allow from others around you. So if you start to really nourish, care for yourself, then that is all you will expect from everyone else. So, from a yogic perspective, because my background, as well as having previously been a designer, I am currently now and have been a long time yogi. My practices are in like yoga, asana, flows, breath work, meditation. I do a lot of women's sensuality and sexuality work and tantra work. So, I mean, coming at it a little from the yogic perspective, there isn't necessarily kind of the idea of self-care in yoga. There is the idea of what's called the shat karmas, which are the 6 actions. And these are 6 kind of cleansing techniques. And I think that while it isn't that important for us today to kind of really talk about the specifics of each of those techniques, the idea of cleansing as part of a self-care practice is a really beautiful one, and one which is really great to do for the start of your journey. So finding ways to start to clean and cleanse your own body is the first step towards self-love, self-care. Welcome to those who are just joining now. What I wanted to say in terms of self-care for women and this short talk is that your self-care practice can change throughout the month. And in fact, for me, this is a really big one. Your cycle can really determine what it is you need. And looking at where you're at, whether it is the follicular phase, the first stage of your cycle, just after your period, whether it's during ovulation, whether it is, what's the word for the bit after ovulation? Luteal, or whether you're in menstruation, you will find that your energy is completely different. So as we know, we kind of feel, and it's very easy for us to understand that during menstruation, we're feeling like we need to rest more, we're wanting to kind of have downtime. This happens throughout the whole cycle, and for all of those phases of our hormones, we need and require something different. And I think that even if, this is something that's a very new idea for you, it is something that can be very liberating for a woman. When you start to create a self-care practice, you can allow it to be intuitive. And this takes some of the pressure off, because self-care and having a routine around self-care should never be something that makes you feel guilty, something that makes you feel bad, like, I didn't do my practice, my self-care practice today. I feel really bad. Like, we want to kind of cut that out. And one way to do that is by being really intuitive and feeling into what you need energetically on each day of the month. And that can also be brought into cycles in your life. So I know that when I am like going through a breakup or a really hard time, my self-care practices increase. So I do a lot more, and I do a lot of kind of self-love, self-touch work, and I make sure I do it every single day. So I wanted to kind of start before I get into some of the techniques that I personally do, I kind of wanted to free us all from the structure of having to do a set thing every single day. This is a very masculine way of doing things. And I wanted to free us all as women to kind of be flexible. Some days are going to be hectic and crazy, and all you'll be able to do is lock the bathroom door and take 5 deep breaths, and that's going to be it. Other days, somebody's taking care of the children, you don't have work on, whatever is going on, your partner's left, or you've just created like really juicy space for yourself and you can do an hour and a half practice. Welcome it that way. It's really important that we start to kind of shake and free ourselves from the guilt, because otherwise self-care doesn't become something joyous, something that feeds us. It becomes another thing to tick off on our to-do list, which none of us need. Let's just put it out there. Nobody needs another box to tick on their to-do list. I know I certainly don't. So I'm going to begin these techniques by talking about what I do. And I want to just let you know that I don't have children and I'm lucky enough to currently not be living with a partner. So I have a lot of space in my home and space in my world. I am also the founder of a business that is all about women and self-care. So it's kind of part of my work to do this. So I have very extravagant self-care practices, but your self-practice can be anything that fits into your lifestyle. Like I said, it could just be 5 deep breaths. So the first thing that I do in the morning is physical stuff. So I usually do a tongue scrape. I also do a dry body brush. These dry body brushes are the best thing in the world. And they're by a company called Stas & Co., run by a friend of mine, Beck. Her sister Claire is also involved. Claire lives in Dublin, and Beck lives in Australia, so there's this really nice Irish-Australian connection. I brush my body every day. And if you want to find out a little bit more about the technique for dry body brushing and even tongue scraping, we have some live videos on the Light Collective YouTube, which you can find on the Light Collective website. The other thing that I do is I use coconut oil sometimes before. Yes, great brush. It is a great brush. I use coconut oil on my body. Now, this is in Ayurveda called Abhyanga, which means the massage of self-love. And when I do this, I make sure I pay particular attention to breasts. So I actually have an entire practice around breast massage, which I do, which is a very sacred technique. This is one breast massage which I teach as part of a course called The Sacred Woman that is coming out this year. So if you're interested in that, head to the Light Collective, of course. But I really spend a fair bit of time on my breasts. And I also, on a side note, I'm lucky enough to not have big boobs. I don't wear a bra, and that also really helps with the lymph around this area. And I also make sure that I get into my yoni space as well. And whenever I am working with my yoni and working in a kind of self-pleasure practice, I always use coconut oil and spend a lot of time in this space. So it brings a sensuality and a pleasure to self-care rather than, as I said before, ticking off the list. When I have time, or when I make time, or when I really need to have a coconut oil massage, and like I said, you can do it before a shower. It is really beautiful. In fact, that's how I prepared for this particular talk. I just lubed my whole body up with coconut oil, and it was really good. It was a good time, and it got me into a very feminine state, and it allowed me to kind of sit down and do this deep feminine work that I'm doing with you right now in a way that is relaxed and happy. And this is the kind of radiance that comes out of doing a really pleasurable self-care practice. So this is my little start. On top of that, you might have noticed if you're following the Sisters by the Sea Instagram, I had a story around hot water. So this is a big one. I drink a liter of hot water first thing in the morning. Sometimes I add lemon juice to it. If I'm drinking the lemon juice, I'll make sure I use a straw because I found that my teeth got really sensitive when I was having too much of the lemon acidity in my mouth. But this is another Ayurvedic technique that I have been doing since I was 19, basically. Maybe not a liter, but definitely at least 1 cup of hot water first thing in the morning. Ideal to get your digestive system going, and you really want to be able to eliminate first thing in the morning. So this is really important for everybody, not just women, because the liver has been working to detoxify through the night. And once you wake up, you want to be able to release all of the toxins, all of the excess hormones, all of the kind of phytoestrogens that are in soy products and chemicals and probably your makeup and all sorts of things that you're ingesting into your body without even realizing it. You want the liver to be kind of working at full function, eliminating first thing in the morning. So having a liter of hot water is a really great idea, and it's pretty simple to do. From here is my sacred time. So actually, I have it here. This is convenient. Here's one I prepared earlier. This is a little mini shrine, and it's great because I can take it anywhere around my house at least. And this is more of a symbol of creating a sacred space for myself. Who's that? My organic wellness. Love lemon water every morning. It's so rejuvenating. It is so good for you. I can't recommend it enough. So as I was saying, sacred space is really, I think, the key. It's really the key practice for me. I mean, this is what I teach: spirituality, working with the energetic body, and this is what most women have become disconnected from, that spiritual aspect of themselves. And we can get caught up in the mundane of work, of family, and we can forget that we are deeply spiritual beings. And what I would recommend is, it doesn't matter where it is in your house, but having some kind of space for you, whether it's just your meditation cushion or whether it's a tiny corner with a candle and somewhere you can light incense, or, you know, you might have your crystals. There might be Mary. I've got Mary. I know that if I'm talking to Irish people, there'll be this kind of background of Catholicism or Christianity in some respects, but I have a beautiful Mary over there as well. It's part of, you know, my upbringing, whatever feels sacred for you, because taking really specific time to be sacred, this is perhaps the one thing that I would say, make a non-negotiable. You might forget to do your dry brushing, or you might forget to do your hot water, but your sacred time, make it non-negotiable. That's yours. What that is in yoga is called a sadhana, which is a daily spiritual practice. And it becomes this habit that is so intrinsically part of your day, you're constantly reminded of your own divinity, your own spirituality, your deepest self, and that expansive subtlety that it is, and that deep intuition that it is also to be a woman in this lifetime. We are gifted as women to have a deep connection to spirit and body and empathy and other people, and taking time to sit in stillness and do some work on yourself. It could be journaling. It might be 5 minutes of flow, of moving through a yoga practice or a Tai Chi practice. Movement is really great. It could be breath work. And breath work is what I really encourage women, and everybody, I should say, also to do, because the breath is with you always. You can always work with your breath. You don't have to be in a yoga studio to work with your breath. You don't have to have a certain outfit on to work with your breath. It is with you always. It is like this key, and it is the key to unlocking different states of mind. So if you need to energize, you can work with the breath to energize. If you need to calm down, you can work with the breath to calm down. It is this yogic key to bringing health, vitality, and deep connection to yourself. You'll notice that when you're stressed out, you have a short, sharp breath. And so what we can do is really start to calm ourselves down, work with the breath. Even as my teacher used to say, you don't want to get up and do your spiritual practice. He'd say, just get on your mat and take 3 breaths. So inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale them to the heart center. Do that 3 times. That can be your practice. But he would say, I guarantee after that 3rd breath, you'll want more. So maybe you'll continue to do a flow, some sun salutes. Maybe it will be a meditation practice. This is something that's a non-negotiable for me. I meditate every day. I've been meditating for a really long time, and it has a very strong and steady impact on your life and your state of consciousness. It doesn't really matter how it looks. I want to kind of encourage a sense of bringing the personal into your own self-care and making it a practice and creating dedicated time. Exhale through the mouth versus the nose from Cher was the question. In this one, it doesn't matter. This is about you being completely intuitive. So if you want to inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth, or exhale through the nose, it doesn't matter. This is the simplest technique you can do to just start to go inwards. It's just 3 breaths. There are, of course, more complicated, I guess, in some ways, techniques around pranayama or breathwork practice. And next week, share through the TLC membership. Through the Light Collective membership, I'm running a course, which is a 4-day course and an introduction to breathwork. So if you're wanting a few key techniques, it's actually it turns into like a short morning practice that can be your self-care practice, which is what I'm doing at the moment in the mornings. And it's very gentle. It's very connecting work. So that's starting next week. So I'm not sure, Cher, if you're a member or not, but you'll be able to access that for free if you are. But what I wanted to finalize with is that your self-care practice, while there are very specific techniques that you can find in yoga through doing a yoga sadhana, a daily spiritual practice. There's Kriya, Kundalini work. There's particular breathwork practices. There's specific meditation techniques. All of this can be learnt. Techniques are there to be learnt. But the most important thing is the mindset that starts to be created when you decide to have a self-care practice, because this is the most important step. It is stepping into a state of deep self-love and self-care. And I would encourage, before you even have to learn a technique and have to kind of set up a special place in your house, before all of that happens, start with something really simple that makes you feel a lot of pleasure. So finding a practice of pleasure is key in doing deep feminine work. Now, pleasure doesn't have to be related to sexuality. You're welcome, Cher. She says thank you. Pleasure could be, for me during COVID, I would go for a walk in the morning and I would pick flowers and herbs on my walk that had a scent that I really enjoyed, or that had a scent at all, because a lot of flowers and plants these days don't. So there's always rosemary around and lavender, and I would pick those and I would breathe them in. And this brought me the simplest kind of experience of pleasure, to just breathe it in. It made me breathe deeply during a very stressful period of lockdown. And I wanted to really impress upon you that that is how simple self-care can be. Doing something that feels really good. I mean, I can teach you self-care techniques around breast massage, for example, but you know where your breasts are. You have 2 hands and you can explore how that feels good, and you can do it in the shower when no one's around. And that can be your self-care practice, really enjoying it, exploring your body. Or, as I said, it could just be 3 deep breaths, bringing the hands to prayer. Whatever your self-care practice is, I encourage you to prioritize it, because once you start to prioritize your own self-care practice, you will see how it floods the rest of your life. You will see that boundaries begin to be created in your relationships. People who perhaps were taking advantage of you can't get away with it anymore because you're just loving yourself so much. Maybe even those relationships or toxic relationships will start to fall away because people don't want to be around, negative people don't want to be around people who are loving themselves and in a really good place. You'll also start to find your own deepening connection to yourself, a deepening intuition, an understanding of your own needs and wants and deep desires. And these deep desires are a very important part of the tantric path, which is the path that I follow, because these desires are seen as wholesome when they're coming from a sattvic state of mind, or a truthful state of mind, or a wholesome state of mind. When you are doing something from this wholesome state, the desires arise that are very true and clear. So, for example, you might find, I don't want to watch another episode on Netflix. A part of you just says, it's time to go to bed. This is a very wholesome desire that is a very true desire, because perhaps you've started to also clean up your diet and eat in a way that is clean and fresh. And all of these things start to kind of sweep away the cobwebs of confusion, of not knowing, of fatigue, to allow you to have more clarity and inner light and insight into yourself, so that you can really follow your own guiding path. Thank you all so much for sitting with me and listening in this half-hour chat around femininity and self-care.